Hey guys, it's Dank Douglas. Recently, I completely restarted development on my game Infiltration. It was a PS1 style survival horror FPS game that I made in Unity, and I also made some devlog videos about, which I started working on about 5 months ago. A big reason that I'm resetting is that I'm switching game engine, and the new game engine that I'm going to be using is called Godot. I don't know if you've heard of it. But yeah, if you want to know more about why I'm switching, just go watch the video before this video. I made a video about it. Anyways, I firstly opened up Godot and I launched a new project which will be titled Blacksight, spelled like light or fright, or right, or might. But not like Sprite, not like black sight, as in like, you know, because that would be I think someone already used that. In this game, you play as Orange, a secret agent who wakes up in a massive, creepy facility. Your ship landed itself there while following some sort of autopilot protocol. So to get started on the game, I firstly added a character body node to start trying to make my own little player controller, which I quickly gave up on and just settled on following a tutorial by Legion Games. In his tutorial, he shows how to make like a smooth FPS player controller. It's got like all the juice, it's got head bob when your player's moving, and FOV sliding that increases your FOV when your player's going fast. After that, I lowered the game's resolution and set the aspect ratio to 4:3 for that authentic PS1 look. Also guys, before we get too far, if you're liking the video so far, please hit the like button, because it shows YouTube that people like my videos. If you like the video, yeah. In this facility, I think I want to have a pretty good variety of like enemies and foes. So, most of which could be marauders, like scavengers or hybrid creatures, zombie guys, I don't know. So to begin work on the enemy, I firstly created a capsule, which is basically a garbanzo bean. This represents like the shape of the enemy. It's just a placeholder. After that, I added a nav agent node. And basically what that is it gets information from the nav mesh, which is like a little map that shows all the places that like the enemy can travel. Yeah, so it talks to the nav mesh for life advice on how to navigate to its destination. Using this information, it can just move to its target with like the quickest time possible, which is pretty good because our player is the target and we don't want to waste anybody's time. And as you can see, it works well enough. It can tell where the player is at, and it follows the player around constantly, like a little annoying mosquito. I think I'm gonna name it Ronnie. And then I used Ronnie as a stepping stool. Unfortunately, Ron doesn't have a brain or any manners like minding personal space. He's always bumping into the player. And in my game, if something's not respecting your personal space, you can always voice your feelings by firing at whoever's disrespecting you with a gun, because it's time to add some weapons. I really like to design guns, so I plan to implement lots of unique designs for all my guns. For the player's starting weapon, I made a pistol out of cubes, which I think turned out pretty cool. Think it's COVID? Try Vaxplovid. After that, I watched a tutorial by Garbage on how to make the gun shoot. Garbage actually makes a lot of really good videos on Godot, so I would recommend watching those if you want to know a little bit about Godot. After that, I wanted to make my own tileable texture for my prototype. So I did that in GIMP by using some photos I took, clicking on the Tile Seamless button, and then I posterized them and scaled them down. A little while later, I was playing on the brand new test area with my boy Ronnie, and then I kind of just came up with a game of tag where I had to avoid touching the enemy without ever looking at it. It's kind of surprisingly fun, and I would sometimes get legitimately jump scared. This proved to be a pretty interesting gimmick, and in my mind, I thought this could actually make a pretty good gameplay feature. An enemy that the more you try to understand and visualize it, the more dangerous and out of control it becomes. So, I began work on the new Stalker class enemy by adding an on-screen notifier node, which is basically a node that can be used to like send a signal or execute code whenever a certain object is in the player's viewport or screen. Next, I made it so that when the player looks at the stalker, it just increases its speed and damage over time. So that's what is getting out of control. And if you guys are enjoying this video so far, I think you'll really like what I have in store for my future videos. So if you actually like what type of videos I make sure to hit the subscribe button so that way you'll be updated anytime I release like a second part of this video or like any other new projects. Plus, I'm really trying to grow my channel right now, and I think it would be really sick if we could hit 500 subscribers with this video, because that would mean I'm halfway to 1,000 subscribers. Then I realized after creating the enemy that I actually need a player stat script for the enemies to be able to do anything to the player. So I added a health and stamina, and I think especially with stamina, it adds a bit of like franticness to the game when the player's only able to outrun what's chasing them if they turn their backs, because that's how you have to sprint. You can't sprint while running backwards. Both stats are visualized by their own respective progress bars. Also, Ron is glowing now, probably after I popped him in the microwave for a few. But after all that coding carnage, I realized this game's enemy category is going to need a lot more variety, because I don't think it would be fair if the only bad guys in the game all go 90 miles per hour and are literally the demon core. So I added a more simple enemy that doesn't really build speed or damage. It's just like a chasing you around type of enemy. I don't know, just a regular mutant guy, zombie dude, I don't know. Anyways, after all that, I decided to create like a more advanced handgun model for the player's starting weapon. I began again in GIMP by creating the texture, and then I 3D modeled it in Blender in a very overly complicated fashion. But I eventually got it imported into Godot, and then I added a placeholder hand just for fun. I think it turned out alright, but I think it looks a bit too much like a value menu Halo CE Magnum, which isn't a bad thing because the Halo CE pistol is dope, but regardless, I think later down the line I'm gonna probably try to redesign it. Late one night as the wind howled like a tortured spirit outside, I was wrapping up work in the game. In the eerie glow of the screen, I was just testing and playing around with the stalker. Initially, it pursued me with unsettling precision as intended, its movements cold and calculated, but then at a moment's notice, it vanished around a corner, leaving me in an uneasy silence. I thought it might be stuck on a level geometry or just bugging out, so I slowly approached, only to find it eerily frozen in place. Dumbfounded, I turned away, dismissing it as a simple bug. But suddenly, as soon as I turned my head, it lunged at me, breaking the stillness and pursuing me with a relentless, almost malevolent determination. Was this thing that I created haunted? Cursed? Not really. The real reason is because of a lack of experience, and all my coding workarounds for creating the enemy were super janky, so I was unintentionally adding so many bugs. All the components I added onto it were acting in pretty much the completely opposite way that I wanted them to act. And then somehow I ended up fixing this bug, but actually it almost bummed me in a way because I kind of liked the unpredictable nature of this enemy. So maybe I could recreate it, I don't know, later so I could emulate this kind of weird volatility. Ironically, I found yet another bug on the mutant class enemy. When you shoot one of them, all the rest just stop in place and they forget where the player was. Seeing you again when you leave their cone of vision and then you re-enter and then they'll start chasing you, but this was basically making the game unplayable. But luckily I eventually fixed this too, but I don't even really know why it started happening. My workflow for solving issues is like plugging a hole in a sinking ship, only for 3 more to pop up. After that, I made ammo pickups for the player, to make ammo into more of a resource than just like an unlimited number. And they rotate around like a little, the ammo boxes from MGS. At one point, I used the CSG combiner to make a prototype of abatement, which is basically the facility that the game takes place in. It's like solar powered, it's all abandoned, and it's like chained to the earth in orbit. I think it looks really cool. But here's the here's kind of what the name means. It's the Oxford definition of abatement. You know what? Never mind. Let's leave this out. So next, I watched another tutorial by Legion Games on how I could make my enemies into animated characters. I used my PS1 inspired hybrid zombie guy model for the mutant enemy, but I'm not going to be giving my stalker enemy any animations yet or ever, because I kind of just want it to be like a billboard, like a next spot from like Gmod and stuff, like, you know, skibbity. After a while of hearing nothing while playing my game, it began to drive me a bit mad, so I added some music I found on Roblox. And eventually I'm planning on hiring a musician to compose a soundtrack for this game. After that, I wanted to hear some crazy gun noises too, so I decided to add an SMG. I just skipped the texture and I started modeling straight away in Blender, and I spent forever trying to model the front sight, which I ended up scrapping anyway. But after that, I eventually got it imported into Godot. At this point, I was almost satisfied enough to pause development for a little bit and get started on making this video. But I still had to add a way to start the game and end the game, and I still needed to make a win condition. For all this, I just went with the game structure of you start the game at the entrance of the facility, and then you go find the special data, and then you just make your way back to the entrance, and you can go to the next level. But if you want, you can explore around the facility extra, like, because the thing you collected will unlock a whole bunch more doors and areas that are more risky, but you can unlock some more stuff too. And this is about as far as I've made it so far that I've made it, you know, so far. But if you liked it so far, thank you so much for watching. Also, if you're interested to submit any ideas, you can comment them down below. I also have an email that you can send if you want to like send me ideas again, or like artwork, or I don't know, any sort of thing you think would be cool to add into the game. The email for that is dankdouglassubmissions@gmail.com. That's again, dankdouglassubmissions@gmail.com. Yeah. Anyways, have a good one, guys.